Hey guys, so here's part 2 of your guys' spring final. So, this has to mostly do with radicals, trig, and then a bunch of factoring and discriminant stuff. So, let's begin. Okay, 19. Now, when you guys have a exponent that is a fraction, so you guys can change this into radical form. And just remember, the denominator of the exponent is the root or the index of the radical. So denominator is the index, and then you're going to raise it to the power, which comes from there. So if you guys recall, since the index is 4, you're trying to find groups of 4, right? So let's break down this 81 to be 9 times 9 and then 3 times 3. So we found a group of 4 of 3s, which comes to the outside, and then 4, right, divided by 4 is just 1r. Now, another way you guys can look at that same example is r to the 4th is r times r times r, and if you guys look at that, that is a group of 4 of 4r's. So 3r to the 1st, and then you guys are going to raise it to the 3rd. So 3 to the 3rd power, which means 3 times 3 times 3, 27, and then r to the 3rd power is r times r times r, which is r to the 3rd, which is d. So the trick is you guys have to make this fraction exponent. The denominator is the index, which means you're looking for groups of 4s, and then raise it later to the 3rd power. Number 20. Okay, so this one is going to be 4x to the 6th and square root. Remember, if it's a 2, that means it has an index of 2, but you just never write it. So that means we're looking for pairs. 2 times 2 is 4, pairs of 2s. So 2. Now 2 goes into 6 3 times, so there's going to be 3 pairs of x's, or you guys can look at it like x, 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 pair, pair, pair. There's 3 pairs, right? Which is why it's 2x to the 3rd. 21. This is where you guys have to simplify your roots, and because this has an index of 2, you're trying to find pairs. So 9 times 3, 3 times 3, pair, leftover. So this pair times this on the outside is going to be negative 9 square root of 3. We got plus 2 rad 3. That can't simplify any further, so drop it down. Negative rad 12. You could break this down to 4 times 3 and then 2 times 2. Pairs of 2s, leftover 3, so the pair comes on the outside, the leftover remains on the inside. And because all of these have the same radicand, then that means you guys can combine all of these coefficients. Negative 9 plus 2 minus 2, that's going to be negative 9, radical 3. Okay, 22. Now this one, instead of finding pairs, now we're trying to find triplets. So we're going to break down this 16 to be 4 times 4, 2 times 2, 2 times 2. Triplet of 2s, leftover. So this triplet times this 2 already on the outside is 4. Cube root of the leftover, which is 2. Okay, this one. Again, we have to make a tree. So 54 times 2, 9 times 6. 3 times 3, 3 times 2. We found a triplet of 3s, leftover of 2s. So this triplet of 3s times this one already on the outside is going to be negative 6. Cube root, the 2 leftovers, 2 times 2 is 4. And then lastly, 2 cube root of 16. 4 times 4, 2 times 2, 2 times 2. Triplet of 2s, leftover of a 2. So this times the outside is 4 cube root of 2. So the only ones we can combine are these two. So 4 plus 4 is 8 cube root of 2 minus 6 cube root of 4. So that means it's going to be C. 23. This is just multiplication, so you guys multiply outside times outside and inside times inside. So for us, it's going to be -4 times -4 for 16, and then 3 times 5 is 15. This can't simplify anymore, so it'd just be A. 24. Okay, so 3 times 4 is 12. 6 times 10 is 60, and then this is something we can break down. 10 and 6, 5 and 2, 2 and 3. Found a pair, leftover, so this pair of 2's gets brought out to the outside, multiplied it by 12 for 24, and then multiply the 2 leftovers together. 5 times 3 is 15. 24, rad 15. 25. So you guys can simplify this, and there's many ways you guys can do this. One thing to notice is, well, both of these are perfect squares, right? So it'd just be 2 times 5 times 4, which is 2 over 20, which is 1 over 10. But there's many ways you guys can simplify it, and another way you guys could have done it is you could have did 4 divide both of these by 4, the ones in the square root, and it would be square root of 1 over 5 square root of 4, which is just 1 over 5 times 2 for 1/10. Or you guys can multiply top and bottom by rad 16. Okay, 26. Now, when you guys have two terms in the for radicals, if you have a binomial, which are 2 terms, then you guys need to multiply by its conjugate. So at top, we gotta do a double distribution. So 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times rad 3 is 3 rad 3. Rad 3 times 5 is 5 rad 3. And rad 3 times itself is just 3. Now on the bottom, remember when you guys multiply by the conjugates, you only care about the first 2 and the last 2. 5 times 5 is 25. So a negative times a positive is a negative, and rad 3 times itself is -3. So up top, you guys can combine these two for 18, and you guys can combine these two, which is 8 rad 3, all over 22. And if you guys notice, you can divide all 3 of these terms by 2. So 9 plus 4 rad 3 all over 11, which is A. So that's your radicals. Now we're moving on to trig. So don't forget, you guys, SOHCAHTOA, right? Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So this one's just asking what's cosine. Well, in this perspective, right, this is opposite, this is hypotenuse, and this is adjacent. So cosine is A over H, so 24 over 25. That's cosine theta. For this one, in the perspective of this angle, this side's opposite. The one across from the 90 is hypotenuse, and the one next to it is adjacent. So since it's sine, it's opposite over hypotenuse, so rad 17 over 9. Okay, here it says find the measure of each angle. So again, still, since we're dealing with trig, still good to use SOHCAHTOA, right? So, and it says rounded to the nearest tenth. So in the perspective of this angle, this is opposite and this is adjacent, right? So tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. Now remember, we're trying to solve for this angle, so we gotta do tan inverse both sides so that this tangent will eliminate, that tan inverse will eliminate the tangent. So really, this is what we gotta put into your calculator, which is why this is your guys's Desmos portion. So just remember, in Desmos, you need to hit the wrench in the top right hand corner, and you gotta make sure it's in radians. Functions, tan inverse of, what is it? 14 divided by 10.4, which is 53.39, but we gotta round it, so it's 53.4, which is C. Okay. Number 30. Again, in the perspective of this angle, this is hypotenuse and this is adjacent. So the one that uses A and H is cosine. So cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Take the cosine inverse to both sides, because this will cancel off with cosine words. So theta equals cosine inverse of 9 over 11. So again, make sure it's in degrees, right? Cosine inverse of 9 divided by 11. 35.09, but for us, we round it to the nearest tenth, so 35.1. A. This one, you gotta find the measurement of the side. So again, in the perspective of this angle, this is hypotenuse, this is adjacent, so it's gonna be cosine 66 equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and this is where you guys gotta cross multiply. X equals 13 cosine 66, so 13 function cosine 66, round it to the nearest tenth, 5.3, which is B. 32. In the perspective of this angle, this is opposite, this is hypotenuse, so this is going to be using sine, opposite over hypotenuse, and this is where you guys got to cross multiply. X sine 27 equals 2, and then divide both sides by sine 27. 2 over sine 27, so we got to put that into the calculator. 2 divided by sine 27. So it's going to be 4.4, rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, so this one, you guys have to find everything. So, well, we already know this is 23, you guys, because a whole triangle adds up to 180. But now we need to figure out what is this length and this one. So, this is angle B, you guys, and the side length opposite to angle B is what we call B, lowercase b, and the side opposite to C is what we call lowercase c. So we need to solve for B and C. So what I would do is I would use the angle that they give us, and in the perspective of this angle, this is opposite and this is adjacent. So I'm gonna solve for B, and I'm gonna be using tangent. Tan 67 equals B over 12, opposite over adjacent, cross multiply. So I know B is going to equal to 12 tan 67. And if we do 12 tan 67, it's going to be 28.3. So that's B. Now let's solve for C. So for C, it's going to be, C is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to use adjacent and hypotenuse, so cosine. Cosine 67 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So we're going to get C cosine 67 equals 12. Divide both sides by cosine 67. So C equals 12 divided by cosine 67, which is going to be 30.7, which is going to be B. So again, just using your guys' trig to pretty much help you guys out. Alright, over here. Okay, I'm using this angle, I'm using this one. Okay, so in the perspective of that, the side length opposite of angle A, you guys, is lowercase a. The side length opposite of angle C is lowercase c. So in the perspective of 57, this is opposite, this is hypotenuse, and this is adjacent, right? So if I'm going to solve for A first, I probably want to do A in the given side. So O and A is tangent. Tan 57 equals opposite over adjacent. Cross multiply, A equals 7 tan 57, which is roughly 7 tan 57. That is 10.8 roughly. So A equals 10.8. If we solve for C, then I would use the given of 7. So A and H, which is cosine. So cosine 57 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. C cosine 57 equals 7. Divide both sides by cosine 57. So if we do 7 divided by cosine 57, we're going to get 12.9. So, oh, all of them say that. Oh, the angle. Remember, all of these have to add up to 180. So this is going to be 33 degrees. Because 33 plus 57 plus 90 is 180. So I should have looked clearer, because all those A's and C's are the same. It was just the angle that was different. Alright, so that's the trig portion, you guys. Now it's this. Now for discriminant, remember you gotta use your b squared minus 4ac. If it's greater than 0 or positive, then there's 2 solutions. If it's equals to 0, there's only 1 solution. And if it's less than 0 or negative, it's gonna be 0 solutions. So this is your A, B, and C. So if we plug it into this formula, negative 10 squared minus 4 times A times C, 100 minus 120, which is negative 20, definitely less than 0, so that's going to give us 0 solutions or 2 imaginary. This also means imaginary, you guys. So that one's going to give us imaginary. 36, again, b squared minus 4ac, a, b, c, negative 10 squared minus 4 times the a, which is negative 5, times the c, which is negative 5. 100 minus 100, so that's going to be 0, which is just one real solution. And then the last 4 is you guys solving for these by factoring. So in order to solve for this, we need to move everything to go on the left-hand side. So I'm going to subtract all of these to go on the left-hand side. N squared minus n minus 56 equals 0. Factor by x method. N minus 8 times n plus 7. So n equals 8 and n equals negative 7. 38, again, because we're dealing with quadratics, move everything to one side of the equation so that the whole equation equals to 0. V squared plus 3v minus 18 equals 0. X method, v plus 6 and v minus 3, so v equals negative 6 and 3, so that's going to be b. 39, again, we have quadratics, so we're going to set it equals to 0. 3x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 0. Now, because a is greater than 0, right? Or a, not greater than 0, it's greater than 1. This is going to be x method and grouping, right? So 3 times 4 is 12. The b is negative 8. The two numbers that multiply to 12 but when added together is negative 8. That's negative 6 and negative 2. But because it's a is greater than 1, we need to factor this by grouping. So 3x squared minus 6x minus 2x plus 4 is equals to 0. We can factor this by grouping. So 3x times x minus 2, factor out negative 2 for x minus 2. 3x minus 2 times x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 2/3 and x is equals to 2. B. And last but not least, number 40. So we're going to subtract negative 11n to go there, set it equal to 0. So 7n squared minus 11n minus 6 equals 0. Again, a is greater than 1, so this is going to be x method and grouping. So 7 times negative 6, negative 42. Middle term's negative 11. So the two numbers that multiply to negative 42 but when added is a negative 11, that is, negative 14 and 3. First term, the two middle terms, and the last term, factor by grouping. So factor out 7n to n minus 2, factor out a 3 for n minus 2. 7n plus 3 times n minus 2 equals 0, so n equals negative 3/7 and n is equals to 2. And it will be C. So that concludes that. So just study up, you guys, and good luck, okay? Peace.